In 2016, Eddie Griffin said, if Trump wins, I'm moving to Africa. Apparently very slowly, because in Trump's 4 years, he only got as far as Van Nuys. George Lopez once said that if Trump won, he won't have to worry about immigration. We'll all go back. George Lopez, still here. And it doesn't look like the migrant traffic is going back. Gosh, it almost seems like the world is full of suffering, intolerance, and oppression on a scale we can't imagine. But that can't be true, because if it was, we'd be protesting it. It must only happen in Israel. And if, for your exile, you do wind up in some comparatively luxurious place like Canada or Japan or the UK, not that they want you, at best, you'll be trading a bunch of stuff you hate about this country for a bunch of stuff you'll soon hate about your new home.
Bill Maher has just gone straight at woke Hollywood and the political class again, and this time the hypocrisy is impossible to ignore. For years, celebrities and left-wing figures have made dramatic promises about leaving America if Trump returned to power. They said it loudly, they said it proudly, they said it as if they meant every word. But now that the moment came and went, what happened? Almost nothing. They are still here, still talking, still benefiting from the same country they keep describing as unbearable. And once more stepped in, this stopped sounding like political frustration and started sounding like a brutal exposure of performative outrage. So if you are ready for the full breakdown, let's get straight into it.
You run for office in America, you have to want to live here. I bring this up because there was a video that made the rounds recently by a woman who said she was a proud progressive and was running for state representative in New Hampshire, and yet posted this.
Is there a place we can move that people would be happy to have us, that we're not gentrifying or colonizing? I don't want to be a problem, but I need to get the out of this country.
The out of this country? The one you want to be elected to a leadership position in? What was your campaign slogan? America, a shining shithole on a hill.
Maher's opening point is simple, but it hits hard. If you want to run for office in America, then you should probably want to live in America. That should not be controversial, but somehow in today's political culture it is, because again and again we see people on the left paint this country as a lost cause while simultaneously asking voters to hand them more power inside it. And that is where the contradiction becomes impossible to defend. On one hand, they frame America as deeply broken morally, exhausted and beyond repair. On the other hand, they still want the influence, the titles, the prestige, and the control that come with being part of its leadership class. That is not courage, that is inconsistency dressed up as principle.
Now, does America have big problems? Yes, I've often cited the America list. Things like being 54th in the world in infant mortality behind Cuba, 19th in literacy behind Russia, 72nd in female representation in government behind Iraq. A lot of work to do here. And is it possible for a country to lose itself so much that leaving it is justified? Yes, but we're not there yet, not by a long shot, and we don't need quitters. We need people who will stay and fix it. Maybe the problem isn't that America isn't worth defending. Maybe the problem is that lots of people today are entitled whiners who have no perspective and no idea how good they have.
And Maher does not soften the blow. He goes right at the mindset behind it. In his view, the real problem is not that America is beyond criticism. Of course, it has problems. Every serious person knows that the real problem is that too many public figures now speak as if perspective no longer matters. They talk like America is uniquely horrible, uniquely oppressive, uniquely hopeless. But that claim collapses the second you compare it to how most of the world actually lives. And that is what makes this rhetoric so dishonest. It is not rooted in balance, it is rooted in exaggeration. It takes every flaw, magnifies it, and then sells that distortion as truth.
59% of self-identified liberals say there have been times when they considered leaving America for good, like after NBC canceled The West Wing. I don't get it. You want so badly for every immigrant to come to this country and experience the good life, but somehow it's so terrible you want to.
That is exactly why the hypocrisy becomes so glaring when immigration enters the conversation, because many of these same voices keep pushing the idea that America is still a place worth coming to. They describe it as a land of opportunity, freedom, protection, and a better future for people looking to build a new life. They support policies designed to make entry easier, settlement safer, and life here more appealing for newcomers. Fine. But then those very same people turn around and speak as if they personally cannot wait to escape, and that is where the whole argument starts falling apart, because which version are we supposed to believe? Is America a country people should be rushing toward, or a country so unbearable that even its loudest defenders want out? You cannot keep selling it as a promise to the rest of the world while framing it like a nightmare for yourself. That contradiction is not small, it is glaring, it is persistent, and it cuts right to the center of the entire narrative.
Just like there's a long list of liberal celebrities who swear they'll go if a Republican is elected, and no one ever does. Miley Cyrus once said, "I am moving if Trump is my president. I don't say things I don't mean." Here she is looking miserable, having to endure America at the Grammys last Sunday.
And then there are the celebrities, which is where this gets even more absurd, because if there is one pattern the public has seen over and over again, it is this: a Republican wins, a celebrity melts down, and suddenly there is another dramatic promise to leave the country forever. We heard it from Miley Cyrus, we heard it from Eddie Griffin, we heard it from George Lopez. Big declarations, big emotions, big headlines. That is the part Maher mocks so effectively, because once the cameras moved on and the outrage cycle cooled off, the bag somehow stayed unpacked. The grand exit never came, and that is what turns the whole thing from a serious political statement into straight-up theater.
I guess she flew back from Tajikistan. In 2016, Eddie Griffin said, "If Trump wins, I'm moving to Africa." Apparently very slowly, because in Trump's 4 years, he only got as far as Van Nuys. George Lopez once said that if Trump won, he won't have to worry about immigration. We'll all go back. George Lopez still here. And it doesn't look like the migrant traffic is going back.
According to critics like Maher, that is because for many of these celebrities, the goal was never to leave. The goal was to signal loyalty, to show the right politics, to prove they were on the approved side of the culture war. That is why their outrage often feels so selective. Under Democratic leadership, there can be controversy, economic pain, foreign policy failures, and public distrust. Yet many celebrity voices stay strangely quiet. But once Trump or the GOP enters the frame, suddenly the language becomes apocalyptic. Now everything is authoritarian, everything is fascism, everything is democracy ending tomorrow. And when the standards shift that dramatically depending on who is in power, people stop hearing principle, they hear partisanship.
Then there's all the TikToks telling Americans things like,
Fucked.
I think the new American dream is to leave.
I'm 18 years old and I escaped America.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to escape America. That wall we're always debating isn't to keep you in. The New Republic just ran a story about the vulnerable minorities who want to flee America, including the author, a gay man trapped in the dystopian homophobic hellscape that is New York City. I wonder if he knows that there are 66 countries where just being gay is a crime.
Maher also zeroes in on something else that deserves more attention: this ridiculous language about escaping America. That word alone tells you how unserious much of this has become. Escaping from what exactly? This is not North Korea. This is not some regime sealing people behind walls. If someone genuinely wants to leave the United States, they are free to try. They can move, they can relocate, they can build a life somewhere else if they have the means and can meet another country's requirements. So the issue is not whether they are trapped there, not. The issue is whether they actually mean what they say. And more often than not, they clearly do not.
Gosh, it almost seems like the world is full of suffering, intolerance, and oppression on a scale we can't imagine. But that can't be true, because if it was, we'd be protesting it. It must only happen in Israel. And if, for your exile, you do wind up in some comparatively luxurious place like Canada or Japan or the UK, not that they want you, at best, you'll be trading a bunch of stuff you hate about this country for a bunch of stuff you'll soon hate about your new home.
And here is where Maher's argument gets even stronger, because a lot of people idealize life abroad without ever speaking honestly about the trade-offs. They see the vacation version, the social media version, the polished version, clean streets, nice cafes, beautiful coastlines, peaceful neighborhoods. But that is not the full picture. Every country has its own frustrations, restrictions, weaknesses, and problems: economic strain, cultural barriers, bureaucratic headaches, limits on speech, limits on opportunity. Different social rules, different legal systems, different expectations. So when Americans romanticize other countries as if they are flawless alternatives to life, here they are not being realistic, they are projecting a fantasy.
Italy always makes the list of great expat destinations because of all those stories on CNN about how you can buy a house in a quaint Italian village for $1. Except it's not a house in the way we think of one, as a structure with plumbing and electricity and a roof. When these places were built, the Leaning Tower of Pisa was still straight. Sure, you can spend $100,000 to make them livable, and I'm sure it's no problem to find reliable workmen in rural Italy who you'll then fall in love with, like in Under the Tuscan Sun,
And that is where Bill Maher's argument becomes much harder to dismiss, because this is no longer just about a few celebrity meltdowns, a few emotional outbursts, or another round of political grandstanding. It is about something deeper. It is about the widening gap between what these public figures keep saying and what they actually do when it matters. If America is constantly described as broken, oppressive, exhausting, and beyond saving, then sooner or later people begin asking a very simple question: why stay? Why keep building careers here, shaping culture here, making money here, and enjoying the reach, influence, and opportunity that come with living in the very country you insist is unbearable? That is the contradiction Maher keeps dragging into the spotlight. Not just anger, not just frustration, contradiction. Because real conviction usually comes with action. If someone truly believes a place has nothing left to offer, they do not keep clinging to it year after year, while publicly condemning it, they leave. But that is not what keeps happening here. What keeps happening is the speech comes first, the headlines follow, the outrage spreads, and then reality quietly steps in. The promise to leave fades, the cameras move on, and life carries on exactly where it always did. And the more often that cycle repeats, the less this starts looking like principle, and the more it starts looking like performance, because at some point people stop listening to the words and start watching the behavior, and when the behavior never matches the rhetoric, the entire act begins to collapse under its own weight. That is what makes Maher's point land so hard. The louder the threat, the more obvious the hypocrisy when nothing happens.
It took me only 4 days in Amsterdam to learn that while I admire Amsterdam, I don't want to live there. The buildings are cramped and shaped like needles. The food is awful. The TV's in a different language. It's wet and cold. The people are polite but cold, and they do a bunch of weird shit. The explanation for, according to my friend, was just remember they're high.
In the end, that is what makes this whole debate so revealing. For all the outrage, all the dramatic speeches, and all the promises to walk away, most of the same voices are still right here, and that speaks louder than any headline or talking point ever could, because beneath all the rhetoric, there is still a truth they cannot seem to escape. For all its flaws, America remains the place they would rather criticize than actually leave, and that is exactly the contradiction Bill Maher keeps exposing. If the country were truly as hopeless as they claim, the follow-through would be easy, but it never comes. And when the outrage is loud but the action never follows, the performance starts to unravel. That is why this argument lands so hard. In the end, their decision to stay says more than their complaints ever will. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next.